G'day, I'm Ash. Hope you're all doing fantastically well. Welcome yourselves back to a different kind of video. This time, in celebration of 60,000 subscribers, we are doing a question and answer. I don't do these typically too often, and I used to really like doing a monthly series where I talk about what's going on with the channel. I since stopped that, and for good reason, focusing on mental health. But anyway, there's a question and answer, and I asked you guys to send me questions on the community panel. So we're going to read some of the most upvoted ones, and obviously pick out a handful of other ones that I saw that I thought would be good enough for a question and answer. In other news, the decal, it will not be here until probably August 1st. My content partner manager slash affiliate manager and marketing manager also confirmed with me that it's probably going to be here at August 1st latest. So if you still want 3% off, it's still an affiliate, but no decal just yet. So that is that. Anyway, One Shot Wrecker 9000 asks, what is living in Australia like? Does it feel normal? Does it feel like the country is literally trying to kill you? And how is it different to other places you've been, if anywhere? Well, I've lived in South Australia, and I've also lived in New Zealand for a little bit, in North Island. I lived in Adelaide for probably 6 to 7 months during aviation training in 2016, and then I have lived the majority of my time out of Melbourne. So Australia feels like any other country. It's quite diverse in its landscapes. It has a diverse weather system, and while people say it's always hot in Australia, you forget that when it's currently winter here, it's cold. I mean, Australia's not trying to kill you. If you go out rural, maybe, but in residential areas and urban areas, you're most likely not to get killed by anything. You might get killed by a politician or a taxi. That's probably about it. Devil Bub asks, what is your favourite aircraft/engine that had potential but was killed before it could reach its potential? The first thing that comes to mind, obviously, is the wonderful aircraft based out of Canada, the Avro Arrow. Now, that thing is an interesting beast of its own accord, but the original sort of development plans and ideas came from an initial project out of Australia because, well, fun fact, we had actually sent a bunch of information to various aircraft companies in, well, the western sort of hemisphere, and then had sent all the data from a test based on our own findings of a all-weather interceptor with radar. Basically, it was early versions of an Su-7 / even an Su-15 mixed with a Lightning, and you would have got a twin-seat, twin-engine Australian electric Lightning. But Britain put their foot down, claimed that we were getting information from the Russians, and then also told us that, there were Russian spies helping our program, and shut that down. So in a result, we had wooden mock-ups and we had to send them to different countries, and through that they learnt that mounting two engines on top of each other or side by side was more equal to thrust per ratio. So they come up with some wacky things for that particular program, and it eventually led to Avro obviously taking some of that information that we had given them and developing it further into what we know as the Arrow. Brian Randolph asks, what does Ash like to do in his free time? Any hobbies that you enjoyed in the past? Model building and painting. Well, I do love tearing apart engines and putting them back together. That is a pastime that I used to enjoy. I don't really have the space for it, although there is a space underneath the house which I have yet to properly renovate. We did a lick of paint and just a different removal of different things under the house. The previous owners had it as a bar area / saloon where they'd have massive parties, and they just basically turned it into a massive storage area. Essentially, for those of you who don't know, I've got a bit of a man cave area. We did paint it up, we did rewire the electronics and do a couple of other smaller jobs. There wasn't really much else, however, and as a result I haven't really had the time to really sort of dedicate to having a welding machine or a massive steel bench or running water, etc, etc. So there is a massive project that needs to be done, and maybe I'll turn it into a sim rig / virtual reality area where I can actually record VR and maybe do some flight sim stuff. But then again, the whole entire room will need sound treatment and lighting and proper lighting. Also, ventilation is a big one. It doesn't really, it's not really the greatest down there. I'd love to have another window or some other access. So yeah, huge job. That's something that I'd like to see. But other hobbies I like doing. I like going aircraft watching. My local airfield has a couple of Tiger Moths, a couple of vintage aircraft. And the ultimate aim for me was to become an aircraft maintenance engineer, and unfortunately, due to work commitments and obviously the fact that Qantas and Jetstar wanted me to relocate to Northern Australia, I didn't really want to relocate, and I thought it was a bit absurd, so I didn't really have much job opportunity, at least in the commercial space. So while I've been trying to find work for the last couple of years, my hobby's sort of been sidelined, even though the general aviation space was growing at the time. Yeah, well, pandemic basically killed that off altogether. I do collect a various amount of other things. I'm starting up a library. I quite like aviation memorabilia. I've got a bunch of just different things. I've got spark plugs from a boomerang. I've got some military spark plugs that my flight instructor gave me. I collect military hats. I've got various Australian naval hats from different ships and from different eras as well. I've also got several other different types of Australian and New Zealand military gear, so there's that as well. In terms of other hobbies, I really enjoy playing guitar. I've got an acoustic Dreadnought guitar made by Tanglewood. It's a TW28. If you're interested, I run Elixir jazz / heavy bronze strings on them because I don't change the strings too often, and I think that's really about it. There are other hobbies I have, but I've since forgotten them, / I have yet to rediscover some of them. A normal YouTube username says, what motivates you to make content? Will you make more history videos on your Aircraft on Jacks channel? The answer to that is yes, I certainly plan to do so. I really like making videos that I would like to watch, so typically I make videos that I would watch myself. Unfortunately, that does mean that the varied quality and quantity of said videos varies quite a lot, and as a result the algorithm doesn't know what to pick up. However, with Aircraft on Jacks, we've been pretty lucky to basically keep going and just produce whatever. The issue I have with Aircraft on Jacks, while it is a history channel, isn't producing the history content. That is probably the better part of the whole ordeal. It's more researching a topic, getting the facts straight, making sure that there is no inconsistencies, verifying your sources, and then writing a video essay to basically read a script from and then dictate to the actual video. It could take 12 hours, even 15 hours, just to get a single 7-minute video done, and that's from, researching, scripting, and then finally producing the actual content. Because keep in mind, you've also got to make it interesting for someone to watch, and that is a challenge and a half. And I hate writing essays. I failed English in high school, and so I'm not very fond of writing essays, even though I did have to do them as a part of history and several other things. I was okay at other classes, and funny enough, got me into YouTube was really just video making. We had a video making class in high school back before I went to trade school, and that really propelled my interest in making video content. But anything music, history, science, geography, and all the elective subjects I was quite good at school. However, I wasn't good at physical education, wasn't particularly good at English or math, the two biggest core subjects, and we had a bunch of other subjects as well. But, to sum up it short, I don't like writing video essays, and as a result, that kind of shows off in the Aircraft on Jacks channel. And while I wanted to do one video a week, because I've started a new job recently, I haven't had the time to really sort it out and also find a work-life balance that really suits the way that I operate this particular channel, which is usually day of upload is usually when the content goes out. So if you haven't already, go subscribe to Aircraft on Jacks. It's a fantastic little channel which I consider my side project at this stage, but there might be more later down the line. Alright, on to the next question. Stay on Ground asks, are you going to open your channel to even more or other games, or will you stick, like now, to War Thunder for the most part? Thank you very much for the question. I think that War Thunder is genuinely a fun game, although after 10 years I'm not really seeing a return on investment for the time that I actually put in. But that's okay, because I've chosen this path, and ultimately it is a game that probably will last at least another 5 years. Outside of that, I don't know how long it will last. There's probably going to be some... there's going to have to be some major controversies or whatever. Anyway, we like playing War Thunder because it's easy to access, it's easy to play, it's easy to recommend, and it's quick to get into a queue/battle and go and fight people in a vehicular-based combat game. That is what people like. Obviously, keeping my ear low to the ground with industry ongoings and the way that publishers deal with content and how they publish content, with early access games and monetary microtransactions and just the way that they do gambling and several other things is quite predatory. So I have to be careful with what I say here, but War Thunder is probably going to be around for another few years. Unlike several of the other types of games that are out there, you've got early access titles that are unfinished or they suddenly go dead, the project goes dead. You've spent all this time, making content for it or building a community on a single type of game. The reality is, if I hadn't have done War Thunder, I'd probably be known for simulation titles anyway. Your DCSs, your IL-2s, your stuff like Snow Runner, Mud Runner, European Truck Sim, American Truck Sim, and just driving games and probably just racing games in general, because those are quite niche in their own regard. Keep in mind that War Thunder is incredibly niche in the marketplace as is, so it's hard to say what the channel would have been if I hadn't have focused on other games per se. Obviously, people underestimate the amount of time you actually need, and obviously that time you invested obviously needs to produce more content, so you're spending more time playing a video game to get footage for a video game, then you've got to also edit the video and obviously do the content over multiple different platforms, whatever your editing style is or your editing preference, and it just gets convoluted. Alternatively, you could just stream the game and then edit highlights. That's what a lot of content creators are doing nowadays. That's obviously an easier job because you know when the highlights are because you've experienced the game in its fullest. But I'd really alternatively like to not be known for War Thunder. Predominantly that's what you guys are here for. I do, I am known for doing Sprocket occasionally, maybe some IL-2 and a tank mechanic simulator video here and there, but those aren't the mainstay of the content. And for now, at least as I approach my 10-year anniversary in February of next year, I kind of want to continue, although we have a special project lined up for that. Had I been smart with the way that I produce content, I would have stopped War Thunder years ago, but we're stuck here, and that is my own fault, and I should have listened to Fly Daily and several other content creators when they said, hey Ash, you've got 15,000 subscribers, you've got 20,000 subscribers, diversify. I should have done that, but again, the risk of killing the channel off and everything else was too high, which is probably why you haven't seen other video games presented here. Matt Ince says, how many toddlers could you beat in a fight if they all came at you at once? 3. I think 4 would be too much. They could easily tackle me over. That's that. Beachblet says, do you think that War Thunder will ever go back to adding more World War II vehicles in each patch? The answer to that one simply is no. We'll probably get a trickle down and maybe a handful of premium vehicles / event vehicles, but no, I think they're done. They're probably going to hype up and publish as much as they can in terms of top tier content as they can, Beach. So no. John Plays, do you think that Minor Nations have a lot of potential in War Thunder? But the same potential is held back due to Gaijin's poor decisions, a lack of addressing more important problems present in each minor nation tech tree. Okay, that's an interesting question. Broken into 2 different parts. First one, I do think that minor tech trees are kind of important. They bring balance and a little bit of uniqueness to the way that War Thunder's monotonous gameplay can be at times. Obviously, it's not going to be in Gaijin's best interest to make a minor tech tree that is full of copy-pastes or full of unique / variants of different vehicles, because then the community will complain like it's another China. They've already done that. They've added China, and now, well, they've got Israel. But Israel's a bit of a disappointment because it's itself is the same sort of tech tree as anything else. So, I don't know, it's kind of convoluted. I think that what they should be doing instead is adding equivalent technology across the board. Instead of just adding the F-14, there should have been something alongside the F-14, say an Su-25 or, I don't know, some sort of vehicle, maybe a Tornado, hint hint. So, that's what should have been, but it's a bit harder to do in retrospect. And second, it doesn't live up to the hype. They're not going to do something that isn't out of popular mainstream, or at least according to the data that they have available. So no, they're going to do the best thing that makes them the most money. Jarvis asks, is mayonnaise an instrument? Yes. Kiwi asks, why do pineapples scare some Gaijin mods? Well, fun fact, Bad Panzer, an Australian moderator, used to be scared of us saying pineapple in general chat. Do you remember when we had a general chat in our chat window? Yeah, those were the days. We used to spam it, and so some Gaijin mods would threaten us with bans. Ash OnlyFans when? No. Sorry, no. Will we ever get a Let's Play of Attack Helicopter Dating Sim, or some other dating sims on your channel? No, maybe. We'll see. but I do want to do a bunch of traveling and maybe even some vlogs and things. So maybe we'll see what other content we can conjure up this year. Anyhow, Alistair asking the hard questions, do you think that your life will improve or worsen, and to what degree? Honestly, Alistair, I think it's going up. I'm not borderline suicidal, although I do still think about dying all the time. It's not to the extreme regard. My PTSD, I'm working through it. We're working through scenarios and situations and my triggers and several other different things. And depression generally has gotten a lot more manageable since I've actually maintained and gotten myself a job. So yes, everything is on the upward trend, and unlike the I'm sorry video that I did in January, I feel like it's important that people really understand that my depression and the way that I made videos back then had nothing to do with the way that I treated War Thunder. Gaming and War Thunder and depression is simply separate subjects, and I wish people understood that. But yeah, life is good, life is okay, there's nothing to really complain about, and I think we're going up. And I never really thought that I'd hit 60,000 subscribers and actually still be here to really sort of think about that. It blows my mind. You know, I've always thought of myself as a small content creator, and I usually base that off the view count that I get. When I think about subscribers, YouTube doesn't really matter in the long run, but the fact that you guys have stuck with me for this many years, and some of you have been around since day one, I have everybody to thank, from my moderators, Twitch supporters, Patreon supporters, the other community members and content creators, and to all the viewers and everybody. You know, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for your encouragement. I wouldn't have grown as a person if it wasn't for your encouragement as well. So it doesn't dawn on me that I have a responsibility for a pretty cool community, and that is fantastic. A community that cares for each other, a community that looks out for each other, and generally tries to do the better thing. You know, I get comments from some of you all the time. Some of you send me emails. Some of you write me incredibly endearing messages of support, and obviously, you know, you make my day. So hopefully we can continue that tradition, and thank you very much for supporting the channel. I really do appreciate it. Still quite hasn't sunk in, and, you know, we've got good things on the horizon, so thank you. I really, really, really do appreciate it. My name is Ash. Hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you in a video soon. Don't forget, 3% off War Thunder. Yeah, I gotta plug that, don't I? I hate plugging things, so fucking support me on Patreon, like the videos, share the video, do all the just